Welcome to Pause for the Truth, where you can sit back, relax, and hear an honest dialogue about health, wealth, legal, and social issues. The hosts are Dr. Rogers Kane, family practice physician, and Jocelyn Turner, health education consultant, with co hosts from the Northeast Florida Medical Society and its foundation. Stay tuned for the truth about matters affecting you and your family. We're here to tell you what's really going on and why. Good evening and welcome to Pause for the Truth. I am your co host, Jocelyn Turner. It is a scorching day in Northeast Florida. I just cannot believe how hot it is. And stay tuned because in a few weeks, we're going to have some environmentalists on to talk about Dr. Kane, how hot it is and climate change and what can we do about it? Because people seem to think that climate change is not real. I don't know how they can say that because I used to be able to go to my car, clean out my car on a Tuesday after or any evening without sweating like bullets. So climate change is real. How are you doing this evening, Dr. Kane?
I'm doing absolutely fine. It's not as hot as it's been being. I didn't melt as much as I did previous to the day. So, but yeah, it's climate change is for real. All you have to do is look around the nation, and I don't want to jinx us by saying we've been blessed with no negative effect at this point.
Dr. Kane, you can't lean down like that, buddy, because all we see is the top
Okay,
of
yeah,
your head. Hey, we had
that's
we had Dr. McGowan on last week with uh, McGowan Chiropractor. You should know we're all now supposed to be sitting up straight and having our computer eye level. Matter of fact, he even said looking up, so we won't have tech neck, which is what I think I have, Dr. Kane. But I digress. So our behind the scenes guy decided to come from behind the scene. How you doing this evening, Call Tyrone Jackson?
I'm doing well, doing well. Thank you very much for asking, Miss Jocelyn. And the weather is what it is. So I've never heard a man or a woman complain about the weather and the weather change.
Well,
always a complaint.
well, tonight we are super honored to have a I don't know if I should say a former radio host because this guy definitely has a radio voice, by the way. So get ready to our normal viewers. If you don't know him, then I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about himself. But joining us this evening is Richard Cuff. How are you doing this evening, Richard?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And Richard, if you
I,
would tell our audience a little bit, I know there's a lot about Richard Cuff, but tell them what they need to know today about Richard Cuff.
well, I'll start off by saying you are looking at I won't say new and improved, but a redone version. My wife passed away 4.5 years ago. So I thought I was sliding into an early retirement. So it's kind of like waiting on her to retire. And then when she passed away, it was like, oh, pull up, pull up, pull up. And I got to get a whole new career off the ground. So um, it's been exciting and um, stress and depression and all those things that you go through after the loss of a loved one. So um, I got my focus was on doing the things that I love, and I love working with children. So I, along with my good friend Andy Bruck, who's a violinist with the Jacksonville Symphony, he and I about 20 years ago maybe started the early an early learning music program called Guiding Success, where we teach 3 and 4 year olds to play violin in preschool. About 2 years ago, I opened the Miriam R. Cuff Innovation Center in honor of my wife. That helps me to focus on my mission to encourage literacy through entrepreneurship and the arts. So we go way back. Um, 30 years ago, I came here to Jacksonville as a aspiring stand-up comedian. I was touring. I had been doing comedy about that time for about 14 years, by mid 90s. So, Steve Harvey, Jamie Foxx, Bernie Mac, D.L. Hughley, I performed, we were all sort of in the same level. It's just that I met my wife and fell in love, and things stopped being funny. I got serious and fell in love. So, but that DJ thing is, and I try to hide the DJ voice because it kind of, it gets distracting as people start saying, do you know you sound like you're on the radio? I've been doing radio for a minute, but most people don't know. If you go back to the mid 90s when 92.7 The Beat had the Quiet Storm, I was Rico the Scorpio, and that was my alter ego. So it was 92.7 The Beat. I'm Rico the Scorpio. This is the Quiet Storm. And then, all of that. But I'm telling you, back then, I'm going to share something that's real funny, because this is my wife. When I met her, I tried to get some points by telling her I was Rico the Scorpio. And she said, Rico the who? She didn't listen to the radio, didn't care about it. So fast forward, we about 20 years, 18, 20 years into our marriage, and she would call me on her way home from work, and I'd go, hello. And Miriam said, put Richard on the phone. She didn't even care about no Rico the Scorpio. So I got no Rico the Scorpio points with my wife. So I had to hang up the DJ. She didn't care about no DJ voice up in here.
Well, listen, you have an amazing story, amazing background. And by the way, I followed Richard. I don't troll him on Facebook, but Richard and I are Facebook friends. And I tell you what, I remember when his wife passed. First of all, when someone posts that, you just are in shock. I didn't know Richard's wife, but just to read what he wrote, just can tell you had an amazing love story, and our condolences to you and your family. And what a way to honor her memory, though. I mean, really, that's pretty to blend your passion and the memory of your wife. So congratulations on the next step and next phase of your life. That's pretty awesome, because we've talked in the past. As a matter of fact, Dr. Kane, we probably need to have another podcast talking about grief and how to use that, right? How to move on and really what your loved one would want you to do. Someone told me when my dad died, honor his memory and take care of yourself, right? And so when I told them that was Dr. Dr. Kane that told me that. She said, I said that? That's pretty profound. I don't even remember saying it, right? And I told her yes, but it meant so much to me. So that's definitely, so when we have that conversation, Richard, definitely would like to bring you back to talk about that. So again, thank you for answering the phone call when I called you at the last minute. I'm sorry, I apologize, but thank you so much for doing that. But now let's get on to tonight, because we're beginning a special series, and Dr. Kane and Tyrone don't know that I want to make this a series after Richard and I spoke, looking at the Jacksonville City Council's proposed budget cuts and what that means for our community. And, just as a prelude to our discussion, budgets aren't just about numbers. They are moral statements. They show us what, and more importantly, who we value. Right now, Jacksonville leaders are debating whether to cut funding for programs that feed our seniors, support struggling families, and invest in the futures of our children, while offering each household about $1 a month in tax savings. Just put a pin in that, about $1 a month. So we have to ask, whose future is really on the line? What happens to the 54,000 young children in Duval County who cannot speak for themselves? What happens to families and seniors who depend on these services to survive? Tonight, we're going to unpack these questions with our guest, Richard, who has been on the front line. Well, maybe not the front line, but he's been vocal about.
I try to stay off that front line. I want y'all to know.
But sees firsthand how these decisions ripple through our community. This is about accountability, values, and the kind of city we want Jacksonville to be. So let's pause for the truth. Are you all ready? Dr. Kane, this kind of conversation is right up your alley. So, you listen, Richard, I don't know if you know Dr. Kane, but he loves having these kinds of conversations. I don't know why, but he just really does. So, Dr. Kane, do you want to open up and share your thoughts about why this topic is important to you?
Well, yeah, just on the quick and dirty on it is that I'm in agreement with Mayor Deegan to the extent that I think this proposed budget and much of the cuts and maybe even some of the add-ons are very divisive, can be very divisive to Jacksonville. Yeah, I could get a sense that there's there's some conversation in there where it's kind of anti-DEI, and I was hoping that that would stay out of Jacksonville. But
Yeah.
again, we can get into those kind of numbers, when you start looking at certain cuts in that budget. Maybe identify the awarders and or the budget increase for other universities in this city, but why wasn't it awarded when it was being pursued? So I'm just gonna throw that out there, and we'll wait to see what you guys come up with. And I did create a quick little chart that I can put up to show, the kind of the gist of the cuts and the increases, how they juxtapose to each other.
You want to put that up now, Dr. Kane, before we begin the discussion?
Yeah,
Uh-oh, we lost Richard. Did you take Richard away, or did we lose him?
We lost him.
Let me see. I lost track of trying to get that over there.
He'll log back in shortly.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out. I'm trying to remember how to put this thing I got here, this chart on.
And there you go, Richard. We lost you for a minute there.
Yeah, I know. I probably missed a whole lot in that split second.
No, you
Well,
didn't.
did you get off to comb your hair? No pun intended, Richard. We just try to, make it
did.
right here. So Richard, let me ask you a question while Dr. Kane figures out how to get that visual up. When you
Okay.
hear that Jacksonville is home to 54,000 children under the age of 5, what comes to mind in terms of their needs and vulnerabilities?
Tons of things come to mind. First of all, I've operated in this space of focusing on top children under 3-4 years old. I can literally say for 55 years, because my mom came home with this tiny little baby that was born 2.5 months premature, and so the anticipation that your little sister is coming home, she's coming home. When my sister came home, I was 10 years old. And I just fell in love with her. My older brother and younger brother, all they wanted to do was go outside and play. All I wanted to do was stay in the house and play with my baby sister. So growing up, I taught her how to read, how to clean herself. She would literally sit on the toilet and sing a song for me to come and wipe her. She didn't want anybody to wipe her. So she'd literally sit and sing a little ditty until I came to wipe her. I don't want you. I don't want you. So we had a wonderful time growing up. I went into the Army. I came back, and I came back home at 21. So my little sister is 11 and a half. By the time she was 12, 13 years old, I had taught her how to drive my stick shift. And my mom got mad as could be because at 12 years old, I took her on the expressway to teach her how to. She was driving on the expressway at 12 and a half years old. But you take a child, anybody on the expressway, believe it or not, that's the best place to learn to drive because you're going straight and there are no intersections. And there's lines that tell you what you go. And then if you're going too slow, people will go around you. It sounds scary, but I teach people to drive on the expressway. My daughter hated it. But fast forward, my daughter is born, and she used to walk around playing violin, pretending to play at 2 years old. My wife and I noticed it. We bought her first violin. Fast forward, she's now working on her PhD in violin performance. On the way home with her first lesson, she said, "Dad, can we get a violin for all the kids in my class?" And she named them, and I said, "No. And don't you dare go to that school telling those children I'm going to buy them a violin. These things are expensive." No. But while one side of my brain was saying no, the other side was saying, wait a minute, I could do this. And fast forward, here we are with the only program that teaches 3 and 4-year-olds to play violin in preschool. Now, I gave that background to just say, I have always been noticing what's going on in the life of a child. It just, my wife says, that's because you one of them. So I never really grew up, okay? So I love being around children. But I think about the fact, and this is the part that really crushes my heart, when the statistics are that 1 out of 5 children will be molested. And so you go 50,000 children, we're talking about 10,000 children that are currently at risk of being taken advantage of. How much are we spending to identify those children right now? Zero. When you think about the children that can be harmed by gangs or influenced by gangs or drugs or anything else, you take any of those statistics, and there are just tons of statistics that say this happens to children, and there is nothing that we're spending other than the $2 million that the city council tosses over to the Kids Hope Alliance and say, here, take this. Well, if there are 50,000 children between the age of up to 5 years old, let's just give 10,000 per age group. And let's just take 20,000, 4 and 5 years old, and take that $2 million and divide that up. That's $100 per year per child. What is that going to do? $10 a month, less than $10 a month. That's what we are investing in our children. So when I think about all the things that could go wrong, what gives me hope is the fact that it's been documented and proven that for every dollar that we invest in a child around 4 years old, it will return somewhere between $12 to $14 by the time they reach 18. So what that means is this $13 million that Kevin Carrico is talking about cutting from the budget by lowering my property tax and telling me that I'm going to benefit because my property taxes are lowered by $15 a year and I get to put around $1 a month in my pocket, that's somehow going to benefit these 50,000 children. That's nonsense. So I say I would rather you raise my property taxes by $15. You can raise them by $15 a month and I can still live with that because I'll just cancel my Netflix or cancel Disney Channel or cancel any one of these subscriptions that I got to make up for that amount, knowing that it creates $13 million that can be put toward children. So and then if you did that $13 million today would be $182 million of impact by the time they're 18 years old. That's what we should be doing.
And when you hear those numbers, I mean, when I heard, and I wish I would have sent Tyrone if I could find it, I'll send you the link, Tyrone, to the video where it was talking about the difference between Kevin Carrico, City Council President, and Mayor Donna Deegan. They were showing the difference between the two, and to say, yay, I'm about to get $1 more a month in my pocket. Really? I'm with you, Richard. I would rather that money go to our most vulnerable population in the community. Dr. Kane, did you have a comment, or do you have the image that you wanted to put up?
I got an image,
still technology challenged.
That's still a technology challenge. I'm gonna send it to Tyrone and let him put it up.
So when you talked about your business working with 4-year-olds, Richard, how do you, I mean, let's just say you were blessed tomorrow and 100 people who were, if I was going to get $12 a month and me and 99 other people were going to get $12 a month. And let's just say, what is that? I mean, $1 a month, $12 each of us. I mean,
$1,200. Yeah.
$1,200. And just think about if you were a local nonprofit that could benefit from the millions of dollars what does that mean in terms of the young people that you were able to bless though with the violin and their future? Because even looking at your daughter, you just saw your daughter just playing like she was playing a violin.
Yes.
Then you all
Hmm.
gifted her a violin, and to think where she is today, that little investment, how it has really influenced her life and her future, right? So
That
what is that? What does that mean to you, and what is the cost? If I were listening and I said, you know what, I'd like to gift a child a violin. So how much? And I'm not trying to do a fundraiser for you, but just to really
yeah.
bring it home in terms of the conversation.
Well, just to put it into perspective, when we started, the cost was like about $600 per child if we added everything per month per child, because it's literally a high quality early childhood music education. So we were going into the kindergarten, and I was doing 5 days a week, and it was technically overkill, but the children that we were doing it for benefited so much. In fact, um, the oldest one at the time was a kindergartner, and the other ones were K4. Earlier, last January of last year, that kindergartner graduated high school, but before she graduated, was invited to play at Carnegie Hall for a recital. And
Wow.
I told her mother that in kindergarten. When I gave her the violin, the first child we ever gifted a violin was Deja. And I told her mother, I said, get ready. You're going to put 200,000 miles on your car, just taking her to lessons and performances, running her all over town. Get ready for that. And I said, one day she's going to perform at Carnegie Hall. And her mother sent me this text, and you could just see the excitement in the way it was texted. And I called her, and she told me that Deja had been chosen, just like she said, just like you said, Deja has been chosen to play at Carnegie Hall. So
Wow.
when over the years, we've been able to get the cost down. Number one, because we don't go into the classroom 5 days a week. What we found was it's better for us to train a teacher at the school to be able to go in and teach the children when we're not there. So we only have to come 2 days a week. And then because we get one teacher that rotates and pay that teacher a salary as an employee rather than as a contracted, outsourced person, that lowers the cost. So we got the cost down from what was $600 per child. Now it's like $150, about $37.50 per week per child. So an $1,800 investment is basically what you would pay to put a child through our music program. And we provide the violin at the 4-year-old level. So that's another $200-300 of cost that the parent doesn't have to pay. And so typically we give the parent the opportunity to pay monthly. It's a little bit more if they pay monthly, but if we do it in a tuition model where you can do what you're talking about, mother, grandmother, uncle, everybody contribute and raise the funds into one lump sum, and then we're able to give them a discount for that amount. So it's about $1,800 is the tuition that includes the instrument, the books, and all the materials that they'll need.
And I like this example because it shows a couple of $1,000s invested in a child today could make a
Yes.
difference, a world of difference in the future. So when you hear city leaders framing these cuts as a tax relief, offering households $1 a month, I mean, the trade-off is just ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's just $1. I can't imagine if city council members will go out and poll people, survey people in the community and ask, would you rather save $1 a month in your taxes, or would you rather that money go towards, which ultimately it means that if all citizens who are benefiting from the $1 a month decide the city, you keep that 13 million dollars,
Yeah,
what the
it's
city can do with that, I'll
that,
bet that people will vote on leaving that money with the city, because that $1 a month, I just don't see people really caring about that, getting $1 a month relief. That's just me. If you're just tuning in, we're talking with Richard Cuff. We're really talking about the whole issue here in Northeast Florida about, whose future is on the line and Jacksonville's budget cuts and the cost to our children. If you have a question or comment, put us a post. Tyrone will put it up if you have a question. Dr. Kane, were you able, or Tyrone, can you put up that piece that you wanted to share as we talk about have this conversation?
Yeah, actually, I'm having a problem with my Outlook. It's not letting me do anything. So I sent that to Tyrone earlier today, but he was busy, so we hadn't had a chance to straighten it out. But one of the things that I taking attention away from that, the city council said that they just kind of put the cuts that you guys were just discussing. They put those cuts in place just to kind of be as a what's the verbiage they use? Just to kind of show people a gesture of goodwill. And I don't know how they call that a good gesture, goodwill, but to show how they can cut city budgets. But the places that they're cutting is ridiculous in terms of how it really benefits the city. You turn around, you cut these programs. Some of them they did put back. They were initially looking at cutting programs like Meals on Wheels and stuff of that nature. And they eventually did put them back. I give them credit to them, at least for now. They also reinstated the Health Link Jacks, which is a kind of a telehealth program for uninsured. And I think we're going to do a future program on that one. So they did put that back, and then they also reinstated $270,000 reinstated for 6 of the safety net clinics. And of course, they put back 1.7 million reinstated for Meals on Wheels, senior nutrition. But again, while they may have put some of those things back, they did not put a budget increase on it, which because as this world turns in our current political situation, as this world turns, we can see what the impact may be to those who are not as well off, those those people who are challenged with their finances. And I'm not just talking about the unemployed poor. I'm talking the working poor. Those people will lose out on a whole lot of those budgetary needs, all because they're just trying to show that. I don't know what they're trying to prove by saving my household $12 a year. I mean, give me a break.
I think it's more about enhancing their political career with their party, or their status rather within their party. But what does it say, Dr. Kane, and even Tyrone, about how Jacksonville values the community? I mean, are you so focused on self and your personal career, or are you really for the community? Because I've heard people say, well, the people want savings in their pocket every day. I can't imagine again that somebody would say $1 a month. I value that more than the overall picture of our community. So what does this decision to cut really say about Jacksonville's value as a community? And I was sharing with Richard earlier, there was discussion during our former mayor's tenure that he was going around he placed billboards around the country encouraging people to move to Jacksonville. Hoorah, as Jacksonville being a good place to live, good place to raise your family. It's affordable, yeah, right? Okay, so you get people here, and I think one of the local news stations talked about it, that people saw it, they moved here, brought their families, but they said that the salary, the income that they made did not line up with the cost of living here, because the cost of housing had gotten so bad, but yet the wages did not level off with that. So people were leaving, going back. So to say that you're trying to put more money in folks' pocket, $1, and it sounds like a good idea, but $1,
Right.
really?
Right.
So why are you trying to ask people to move here? Because this is a great place to live. Move here, but once you get here, we don't care about you.
you know, what you're looking at is the housing. I'm gonna just give you a few of the statistics right quick. So housing and homelessness, they trimmed $6.25 million from, you know, to help, since you mentioned affordable housing or attainable housing, to take away from that, the city ability to help people out with that and the utilities, you know, eviction diversion and so on and so on. They cut $2.23 million from the homeless programs. They cut $8.7 million from Edward Waters College. They, but now that kind of halfway counter that, in my opinion, they gave monies to University of North Florida, I think in terms of building a stadium, allocation for a new sports arena. They gave $3 million to them, and then $105 million went to University of Florida to help build their La Villa campus. You know, plus the land they gave them. And I grant you is somewhat of an innovation project to anchor that they say to anchor downtown redevelopment. But by the same token, why did you, like what you said, Ms. Charles, for $1 and some change of money, about $18.75 a year? Why would you forego trying to improve the educational circumstance in your homegrown university, i.e. Edward Waters College? Why would you take that money away? And it really didn't, you know, it didn't have to for $1 and some change a year saving.
Well, here's the pattern that I saw. The Republicans in this city seem to line up to see who could be the best MAGA Republican. And
Right.
So everything that Trump was doing in Washington, and then DeSantis tried to show that he can be a MAGA Republican. And so he created Florida Doge. And then one of these individuals, I was about to say something else, one of these individuals on city council decided that we needed a Duval Doge. And so they did Duval Doge. And then remember, they were going to give this money to the police department to get more stuff to round up immigrants, and Donna Deegan, you know, vetoed that. She stopped that dead in its tracks. Then they came right behind that with the audit and the efficiency audit and all that stuff, and then the tax cuts. All they're literally doing is saying, look, Papa, we're doing the same thing you're doing in Washington, and at the rate that we're going, it's not going to be long before you start hearing, and I guarantee you it's going to start very soon, that they're going to start talking about the need to put troops on Northwest Jacksonville where there's all the crime at. And because there's no crime on the South Side, of course, as they're going to make it. But one of those Republicans up there is going to invite MAGA into this. And so my answer to what's the motivation is they're just ringing the Republican bell and saying, we're going to do the same thing that every other Republican group of leaders is doing. But technically, Duval County is nonpartisan. So we shouldn't be driven by the Republican agenda or the Democratic agenda. But somehow we act as if we don't care about party affiliation during the election. And then right after the election, everybody jumps into a party. And then the Republicans have all the power. And so they are using that power. And then they're just pushing a Republican agenda. And it's not even a conservative agenda. The Republicans have stopped calling themselves conservatives. They don't even mention that word. The same way we don't say the word. Listen to what they say. They say you're in America. They don't say the United States of America. You don't hear them say that anymore. So they removed the word united so that they can say America. And then they are not talking about doing anything but running their party initiatives across what we're doing. And that's, you know, that says that they're not about conservative. They don't want to conserve anything. What they want to do is move forward an agenda that's going to keep them in power and get them more money from their donors, because a $13 million tax break, yes, if you average it out, But this is not giving back the average person a, a tax break. If we talk about, if you own, the best way to talk about it is this. Those who own a house like Richard Cuff's house, my house is right around 300K, for maybe somewhere in there. I'm not going to get the same tax break as somebody that owns a house that's $2 million. So the person that's got the $2 million house, or the person that owns JWB owns 4,800 houses. They're the ones that's going to see the massive tax break. So you take 4,800 times whatever that number is that's going to be reduced. That's the money that's going into JWB's pocket. Now compare that money going into their pocket to the money that's going into my pocket. There's no comparison. But those handful of very wealthy landowners, those that have $1 million house, and I guarantee you there's a lot of $4 and $5 million houses in this city. Look at the tax savings on them, and then see which party they're a member of, and you got why we're doing this.
Well, Jacksonville Sheriff Office is getting $100 million new salary and pensions obligation. The University of Florida, $105 million, and $3 million towards STEM talent education. And then the Jacksonville Jaguars, of course, get $775 million for the stadium renovation, which is supposedly 50% match with the Jaguars. Now, they may still say, and then also additional, separate $150 million city funding for surrounding development. Now, they may say that brings jobs to the city and blah, 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 blah. But again, $18.75 a year is all I'm really saving, and you're still making these types of budget adjustments. I'm not even arguing the budget, whom they gave money as much as it is, and I am at least who you're taking monies from in order to give these people money.
And we talk about the human stories behind the numbers. This is the difference between funding a program and feeding a child. Losing the services that we're talking about means parents struggling without affordable childcare, seniors losing vital meals and social connection, families pushed into further crisis. So Richard, just the things that you talked about was just so real in terms of, the national Doge and then Duval Doge Florida and then Duval Doge. I don't know, it just seems like a clique that people are trying to be a part of, and really not, they don't advocate. And we have a comment: you must remember that the Republicans on the city council are very cruel. The hate for Duval residents that they exude is appalling. Thank you to our viewer. It's so real, but we got to start holding people accountable. I know what I personally did is I don't tell people who to vote for. I just tell people, just do your homework. And as long as you can live with the decision you make for the people that you vote for, then do it. However, here in Jacksonville, there's going to be a vote that's going to happen in a few weeks. I don't know the exact date, but you have the opportunity between now and then to do your homework. We'll go online and look for good concert tickets and a football game coming up and a nice outfit or whatever the case may be. Do your homework and see what the budget, and if some of our viewers don't live in Jacksonville or Florida, look at what's happening in your city. Go online, see what decisions are being made that impact your community, and pick up the phone, call and voice your opinion. If you don't like what they're doing, get to know your local officials. State, national elections are very important. However, there are a lot of things that happen locally that you can influence. But the first thing you have to do is get from behind texting your friends and social media posts only, and call those folks who ask you for their vote when they're campaigning, and let them know how you feel. If you don't like the decisions that they're making, flood their voicemails. Get a text going, send it to your friends and tell them, because that's what I did. Here's a list of the local council folks in Jacksonville. I don't tell them what to do. Here's what they're proposing to do. Here are their contact numbers. call them and tell them how you feel and say, when you came around to my church or to my civic group and asked me to vote for you, you said you were going to do X, Y, and Z, but now you seem to have changed, right?
Right.
Because some of them, they get in there and they flip, right? They then look at their political career elevating. It's not about the people anymore and the things that they allegedly say that they were going to do. If you're just tuning in, we're having a discussion with Richard Cuff talking about what's happening here in Jacksonville and the difference between what our local city council is proposing to do and what our mayor is proposing to do. Unfortunately, as in many cities across the nation, if you are not from the same party affiliation, those things are not aligning. It seems to be more about party interests versus the interests and needs of the community. Dr. Kane, were you about to ask a question?
I was just going to make the verbiage that I'm looking for is that, this whole symbolic is what one of the city council members said. Symbolic tax relief. Because again, that's all $1.50 can do is be symbolic of the tax relief. Unless you're going to buy some donuts, some Krispy Kreme or something.
And you can use go get some symbolic gas in your car.
Right. Or the symbolic egg that 12%.
Give me
one
symbolic.
One of my friends was talking about the $4 a gallon gas that they were buying. So what should residents of Jacksonville be paying close attention to as this budget moves forward?
And as we're coming up on the election, because that's one of the things that we're coming up on the election, and so now it's the time to hold their feet to the fire with first of all their promises, and then what they do afterwards is the time to hold their feet to the fire and to doing what you say you were going to do for sure.
Yeah, this is why where I want to. And maybe this is where I get radical. Okay, so if there's a radical part of me, this is where I get radical. I have been registered no party affiliation since I came home from the Army, and I don't think I voted. I didn't vote while I was in the Army because I waited. I came out in 81, 21 years old. I go and register. And then that's when I saw the registration and it says, what party do you want to be a member of? I went down. I was like, no. And I saw no party affiliation, NPA. I checked that because I didn't have a party. So in my mind, I'm not actively in any one of these parties. So let me just say I am no party affiliation. As I start, especially when I got here to Jacksonville, and I remember I called the supervisor of elections because they sent me a sample ballot. And I was like, well, I don't see where I can vote for anyone. No, that I didn't have a Democrat or a Republican that I could vote for. And he said, well, that's because you're no party affiliation. And I mean, what do you mean because I'm no party affiliation? I said I should be able to choose to vote for anybody that I want. That's why I'm no party. I should be able to vote for anybody. No, you are a member of a party. It's an NPA. I said, I'm talking to the person at the supervisor. And I say, you mean to tell me I'm a member of the no party party? And there was a silence on the phone. I was like, exactly. How can I be a member of the no party party? So the radical part of me says, I want to file a lawsuit because technically what it's like I'm being denied the right to vote because I don't count these jelly beans, or I can't tell you how many bubbles are on the soap, or I can't do, well, they say, Mr. Cuff, you can't vote because it's a private primary. Then why the heck is my tax dollars paying for a private election? I can't go and vote for the president of the musicians union. I can't go and vote for the president. My tax dollars are not used for the carpenters union or the electric, and they vote for presidents all the time. And by the way, I remember what I was supposed to be doing tonight. We had a HOA meeting, and Miss Jocelyn calls me to miss that meeting. I'm gonna tell them. I said, yeah, I'll be on the podcast, but for the life of me, I can't remember what I'm supposed to be doing tonight, and it'll come to mind. Yeah, but my point is, I can't. My taxpayer dollars are not funding the HOA president election, It's not funding anybody's election. So why does my dollars fund the Republican Party as they want to choose which member runs in the general election? If I'm excluded from that, then my tax dollars should be excluded from that. That's taxation without representation. Now, the radical part of me says, before I fight that, I would much rather try to get everybody to understand that we would control the game if everybody went no party affiliation until 30 days before the election. And the reason for that is when you say, Jocelyn, that you are a Republican, forgive me if you're not, but if you say you're a Republican, Dr. Rice, you say Dr. Kane, you say you are you're a Democrat, then listen, if I'm running as a Republican, I know I got Jocelyn's vote. And if I'm running as a Republican, I know I'm not going to get your Democratic vote. So guess what? Because I know I got your vote, I don't have to talk to you. And because I know I'm not going to get your vote, I don't talk to you anyway. So the only person that I'm going to talk to is that tiny little slither in the middle that I just need to get over here on my side during the primaries. Because that's what's going to help me win. And that's how Trump won. People told him, do not talk to those people over there. But he did. He started saying what they wanted to hear, and they started showing up during the primaries. Enough of them knocked out little Marco Rubio, and he gave little nasty names to everybody. There were 17 Republicans standing on that stage. By the end of the Republican primaries, Trump was the last man standing, and I, as an NPA, couldn't vote for him. You, as a Democrat, couldn't vote over there. Why? Because when you pledge a party, you have to vote your party. Now, what's the law that they're going to come out with? They're going to say, well, you can't just change parties like that. Yes, you can. So what we've got to do as Black people is remember what happened during Reconstruction. Go and look at your history books. Tell me, how is it that in the 12 years after Reconstruction, we could get 14 Black members of Congress, when before the Civil War, there was 0? What happened? We suddenly were given the opportunity to participate. And then we got 13th, 14th, and the 15th Amendment passed and ratified. How did that happen? Because the Republicans had enough power, along with the Freedmen Party, the Black vote, and we ran the table.
Yep.
And then what happened in 1877, which is the Compromise of 1877. Google it, y'all, because I'm not making this stuff up. Google Compromise of 1877, and let me bring it home. Imagine when Donald Trump won against Hillary. Everybody was shocked. Now imagine if Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump went into a secret meeting, and Hillary came out and said, guys, I am now president. And Donald Trump will no longer be convicted of anything. He gets everything he wants because he gave me the presidency. I'm going to give him what he wants. That's exactly what happened in 1877. The Democrat, Samuel James Tilden, won the electoral vote and the popular vote, but the Republicans in the North knew he did that by suppressing the Black vote. So they were going to go before the Supreme Court. But before they went before the Supreme Court, they met at the Wormley Hotel. Believe it or not, it was a hotel owned by a Black man in Washington, D.C., and they had a secret meeting. They shook hands in that secret meeting and came out of that meeting saying, okay, the Republican is going to be the president. Even though the Democrat has won all the votes, Rutherford B. Hayes is going to become the president. And in exchange, Rutherford B. Hayes is going to put an end to Reconstruction. And this president is going to start rolling back all the advances that came during Reconstruction, so that by 1887, Plessy v. Ferguson went before the Supreme Court. When you think about, I think, what's the number? Like something like 42 of the first 46 Supreme Court justices were slave owners. Yep. Is there any reason why you think they wouldn't have voted for Black people to be at the back of the bus? So that's what we were dealing with. So 1901, George Henry Smith, I can't remember, forgive me his last name, but the last Black man, he said this. He said, his speech, he basically said, I may be being pushed out right now. I'm the last man standing, but he said, Phoenix-like, we will rise again. And the history books don't talk about that. But we were pushed out of government because the Republican and the Democrats got together and say, let's make certain that those Negroes never come in between with the power of their vote. Now they got to either choose one side or the other side. They will never be able to do what they did during Reconstruction when they were considered freedmen. We may not be able to start the Freedmen Party, but I'm telling you, it would mess up the whole system if every Black person, this is the radical part I'm saying, if every Black person went down to the supervisor of elections office and said, I am now no party affiliation, I will vote either Republican or Democrat if you talk to me. It'll
Wow, that was
mess
a
them
history
up.
lesson. By the way, go on history.com and learn about that. I just looked it up,
Oh,
Richard, like,
okay.
okay.
Yeah, nobody talks about it. You just go and research Compromise of 1877 and you will see why things got jacked up for us. That's because the Republicans got back together again. And get this, from 1801, you want to research something else? Go look at the presidents. What party was the presidents from 1801 to 1821? And it will tell you all those presidents for that 20-year period were members of the Democratic Republican Party. That's what the party was called, Democratic Republican. The reason why they split was 1808, they stopped shipping slaves over here, and the slave owning Democratic Republicans, the Democrats they split. And that split got so bad they went to war. And then in 1877, they came back together again. Well, guess what? They're two wings of the same bird. They ain't gonna ever go too far. They're now Republican Democratic Party again, but they're making us believe that they're not. The reality of it is it's the Republicans, the slaveholding part, that becomes the radical and goes to war with the other side. And that's why you got the MAGAs that are about to go to war with the Democrats again. So I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna be quiet. This is my radicalness. When the Civil War breaks out again this time, I'm gonna do the same way we did the last time. We were sitting back watching and be like, wait for this to be over. Let them, y'all go ahead, kill yourself, have fun. I'm gonna sit here and watch just like y'all did the last time, kill each other.
So, Richard, if you could speak directly to a city, and I'm going to ask Dr. Kane as well, if you could speak directly to a city council member right now, what would you say about what they're doing?
I would say, I would ask them, and I'll speak to them all as one. Let me speak to them as one, as opposed to just one. Why don't you step away from party affiliation? What purpose does party affiliation serve you on city council as it relates to serving me? So will you pass a bill that once you get on city council, you walk away from party and you walk into service, and therefore no city council member is referred to by party affiliation? You're the city council member representing District 7. You're the at-large District 5. You're the city council representing District 12. That's how we operate. And then we stop them from getting party agenda because we have sunshine laws that they can't meet in private, but they can carry a Republican agenda. That's all about the meeting. So this thing about, oh, it's illegal for them to meet in private and we're gonna investigate about what they talked about. Forget about what they talk about in a private meeting. What are they talking about in their party meetings? That's what's killing us. I'm not concerned about two city council members texting each other during a meeting. That don't bother me at all. What bothers me is when Kevin Carrico stands in front of that microphone and sounds just like Donald Trump's Republicans up there in Washington. That's what concerns me. And then tell me, pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. We're just going to do it. What was that word, Dr. Kane, that you said? It's test it out to see what it's like.
Symbolic. I thought you were
symbolic. That's it. Yeah, this is just symbolic. So you're gonna symbolically pee on my leg and tell me it's raining? No. I'm sorry. That's okay. I'm
Dr.
no
Kane,
more radical. No more radical for me.
Dr. Kane, what would, if you could speak directly to a city council member right now, what would you say?
Well, the bottom line is, I think that, the 2025 budget signals will shift from social services, toward some local equity programs, and local equity programs, uh, and to high visibility capital investment like the Jaguar, the University of Florida, GSO. While it may drive long-term growth, um, the near-term cost is what we're really looking at, and that is the reduction of safety net capacity for the vulnerable population here in Jacksonville. The balance of the priorities, as I mentioned, with the symbolic tax cut, large public safety raises, and landmark like in the Jacksonville Shire, and landmark downtown project like in University of Florida Technology Office. While they need to consider, like I said, balance the priorities for what's best for the city, and then that might help shape the reinvigorate what Jacksonville residents, the trust that Jacksonville residents may have in City Hall. As it stands right now, nobody trusts. I ain't gonna say nobody. They get mad, but
Right.
we're basically not trusting City Hall in terms of the decisions that they make, because it's too political, it's too anti-DEI, which is still political, and so on and so on.
Well, guess what? We've talked for an hour, and we like to respect our guests' time. So, Richard, at the end of every show, we like to give our guests an opportunity to share their final thoughts they'd like to leave with our audience. But first, we want to thank you for being with us tonight. We'll say that at the end. But what are your final thoughts that you'd like to leave with our guests tonight, our audience?
The final thought is how important a forum like this is. We, even though the mainstream media and the press can control the narrative about what's dumped into our community, it's a forum like this that can weed through it, as they say, eat the meat and spit out the bones. Right? We have to be able to have these kinds of conversations. So I appreciate you for inviting me on this Pause for the Truth. I'm looking forward to coming back. Maybe not as radical, but early childhood it'll get me radical, because I just believe that we need to be investing in our children. And that's what I really want to say is, as a final thought, is that we've got to not just sit and be quiet, or when they say something crazy, right? So we got one or two choices. They say something crazy, we can be quiet, or we can speak up against their craziness. But what we're not doing is speaking for the things we should be talking for. So basically, they got us distracted. So I'm going to talk to Carico about taking that $13 million and putting it toward the children. I'm not going to talk about, how crazy it is to cut it, or the wealthy people that's getting it and all that stuff. I'm going to talk about the children. Stay focused. And that's the final word I want to say. African Americans are in a beautiful position. I'll leave this. Look up Great Wealth Transfer, and you'll understand that between January 1st next year, the first baby boomer will turn 80 years old. And so for the next 20 years, on the low end, 84 trillion, on the high end, $104 trillion, over $5 trillion per year, every year for the next 20 years, is leaving the hands of those baby boomers and going into the next generation. That's the wave that they see coming. And they're not talking about that, because African Americans are in a position to capitalize on all of that. if we can only come together and speak as one. And that's what I will encourage everybody. Start forming communities, even if it's 4 people here. Put together your 4 people, have these conversations, talk as much as possible. Always talk about the children, and then consider what's happening in the great wealth transfer over the next 20 years.
Wow, you taught me something else. I just looked that up. The great wealth transfer refers to the intergenerational transfer of assets from baby boomers to younger generations and charities. It's expected to be the largest transfer of wealth in history with an estimated $84 trillion. Wow,
And that's what I said
now I know.
on the that's no, I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's the low end. The high end is 104 trillion in some estimates.
Yeah, we definitely need to study more instead of no shade with, because Tyrone don't like when I start throwing shade at social media, but no shade at
Mhm.
social media because we can use it to our advantage, Tyrone. I'm not going to throw shade on it,
Thank you.
Tyrone. But before I get to Dr. Kane, Tyrone, I'd like to ask, you were pretty quiet and I can see the steam coming out your head. You had some things to say, but you held it in. But what are your final thoughts that you'd like to share with our guests before
Why,
we close
well,
out?
first of all, I want to thank Richard for coming on. The wealth of information that he gave was, I think, not only positive but valuable. Um, I, I remain somewhat reserved under these circumstances because Richard apologized on several occasions for being radical. As this subject is abound, radical is pretty much the mindset that I have.
Mm.
And I appreciate his tempered attitude and delivery of his message. The thing that I like to say is that I am often dismayed at how surprised we appear to be at what they do.
Mm.
And the facts are clear. The reason why they are doing these things now is because they have learned an important lesson through Trump that these things work.
Yeah.
They reserve their white privilege, their direction, the things that mean and have value to them are reserved. So when all is said and done and all the stones have been thrown, the truth is that at the end, a man was elected who was not qualified. A man was elected who had a directive from an outside group spearheaded by money. So why would we be surprised at the depth? Politicians fear one thing, and that's not being in politics. So, and so what they've learned is if we follow the leader, we can stay in politics.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna leave it there. Thanks again, Richard. I thoroughly enjoyed it quite a bit to look up and Richard. I know at one point in time you said, "Who is that typing in the background?" Well, you shouldn't be giving such good information to have us researching if you don't want us to type in the background.
No, yeah, I appreciate that. I heard the clacking and I put a note. I said, I can hear you typing.
Thank you, Tyrone. Dr. Kane, what are your final thoughts? Well, you need you to lean up, sit up, Dr. Kane, because all we see is the top of your head again.
Yeah. I thank you, Mr. Cuff, for coming on and joining us and enlightening us on your views. They are very much appreciated by most of us, most African Americans, but like they say, all skin folks and kin folks, or vice
Yeah.
versa, if you want to put it. But we really thank you for coming on to the show. I agree with you that platforms like this is what we need to have. Anybody that has a platform that they can present to numerous people within Jacksonville or around the nation, they should step up and go on ahead and voice their opinion and let be opinions of others be voiced on that platform. You know, you talk about radicalism. Radicalism is what's needed in this environment. Complacency means you just going along with it, and sooner or later they're going to come after you, Mr. Complacent or Mrs. Complacent. Okay, so we need to be radical in terms of our approach to deal with them. It doesn't mean we got to go out there marching so that they can shoot us or drown us with water holes or anything, but we can state what our opinions are and what we think. We have to, and I can agree with one of our listeners, you know, if you got a black city council person that's incompetent, or, you know, they may be competent, but they are not doing what's best for their constituents, let them be voted out, period. Okay? Don't waste time. Don't hesitate. Vote their asses out, you know, just to make sure that we can put somebody in that at least thrives to help their people within the community. And then, you know, when Tyrone mentioned about a leader that got elected, an incompetent leader, and I agree 100%, but he wasn't elected for his competency. He was elected because they knew that he would certify their agenda, that he would go and do what, what the white privileged America wants to be done. He would be, because he's so narcissistic and self engorged that they could depend on him doing what they want, and that is maintain white privilege. So again, thank you, sir, for coming on board. There's a lot we can say, and we're going to talk more about this budget down the road, and especially how it affects the healthcare community in a couple episodes.
Thank you, Dr. Kane, and thank you, Richard. Tonight's conversation reminds us that budgets are more than numbers. They are moral documents. They tell us what and who we value as a community. In Jacksonville, we're talking about 54,000 children under the age of 5 who cannot speak for themselves, families who depend on affordable services, and seniors who rely on programs like Meals on Wheels just to get through the day. The question before us isn't whether a $1 a month tax break matters. It's whether we as a city are willing to trade the future of our children and the well-being of our most vulnerable neighbors for short-term political wins. We still have a choice, and that choice belongs to all of us. If you care about Jacksonville's children, if you believe in dignity for our seniors, if you want a city that invests in people rather than abandons them, now is the time to act. Reach out to your council members, show up, speak up, and remind them that our community deserves better. Thank you for joining us on what is going to be part 1, because in a couple of weeks, we're going to have someone on, or next week, I can't remember, to continue the discussion. We'll go deeper into the more stories, focusing on, in that case, on health. And we'll ask who really speaks for Jacksonville and Jacksonville's children most vulnerable. Until then, stay engaged, stay hopeful, and let's keep fighting for a future where every child and every family counts. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And Richard, don't get off the air once we finish.
The next week
will be
is about dementia. I just wanted to throw that out.
What'd you say, Dr. Kane?
The program is about dementia. We're going to discuss dementia.
Okay. All righty. Okay.
But now
thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
We appreciate you spending time with us on Pause for the Truth. Ms. Jocelyn Turner and Dr. Rogers Kane are grateful for your support. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, catch us live on Twitch, and most importantly, subscribe on YouTube. A big shout out to Tyrone Jackson at Call Tyrone IT Services for keeping us connected. Join us every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for more enlightening discussions. Thanks, and see you next week.